Welcome to the HRchat podcast, bringing the best of the HR and talent communities to you.
Welcome to another episode of the HRchat podcast. I'm your host, Bill Banham, and today we are joined by Noel Webb. Noel is co-founder and CEO of Karen, the latest project from his role as Director of Product Innovation at Innosphere. During Noel's career as a technology leader, he has developed a passion for products and innovations and has been the driving force behind products like Tech and Design and Team HQ. Noel, welcome to the HRchat podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Noel, what I didn't mention in the introduction is that you're also a speaker at the DisruptHR Toronto event, which is happening on December 1st. So depending on when you're listening to this, it's either happened or it's just about to happen. So Noel, we're going to be focusing quite a lot of the chat today on DisruptHR Toronto and your session and so on. But before we go down that route, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about your career history and how you came to be in your current role.
Sure. So it began years and years and years ago. Just after I'd finished university, I decided I didn't really want to go and work for anybody else, so I started my own recording studio with my business partner at the time. And if any of you out there are familiar with owning and running a recording studio, they're not the most profitable ventures. But we ended up having actually a client that had, it was comprised of a bunch of different guys in this band. They were from ad agencies, they were professors at universities and so forth. And very, very quickly we were introduced into the world of the agricultural ad agency. And we were asked to come in and do a credentials presentation. And by the end of that presentation, we landed our first gig with an agency. And it was a little bit of doing some audio work for them, as well as some technological work, doing some podcasts, as well as some interactive design. So that was really where everything started for me. And jump, years and years and years later, as I was running my last company, BAM Digital, I decided to take my hand in trying and developing products, because it was something that was really, really interesting to me, and seeing how people were doing that. And got into actually developing a cryptocurrency product called QuickMint at the time. This was quite in the early days of cryptocurrencies, and the Canadian government and banks just didn't know how to deal with it at the time with all of your KYC and your customer compliance. And so what ended up actually happening is right before launch, that very quickly got shut down by the banks. Requiring us to go deeper and deeper into having a compliance officer and whatnot. It was a really murky time in the world of cryptocurrency. And so the government turned around and the banks turned around and shut off many companies that were using banks and with their cryptocurrency companies. And so from there, I'd actually met Jeff Berardini, who is the CEO and president of Innosphere. He was an advisor for that particular startup that I was getting off the ground. And as it came to a close, we kept on discussing, what are the different kinds of things that we would like to develop or work on as products. And before you knew it, I was asked to see if I wanted to join Innosphere as the director of product innovation and a partner here. And that's where we got started. So we've been developing products here at Innosphere for just over 2 years, and now we've landed on one that we think is going to be a hit. And oddly enough, many of the products that we've been developing up until this point have led directly into this direction.
Okay, so tell us a bit about Karen. What does it do?
So Karen is a cognitive recruiting assistant. And so what I mean by that is it's an artificial intelligence machine that we have designed to be able to read and disseminate the content of job requisitions and compare them directly against the submissions from job candidates. And so what we actually do is we when we ingest a job requisition, we pull out keywords and concepts and personality insights by doing sentiment analysis on the text and on the copy. And then we do the same with the candidate submission as well. And we compare the two, and we're able to score and rank each one of those that come out, like each of the keywords and each of the concepts that come out, to be able to shortlist the candidate submissions to a recruiter. So it saves them having to go through hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes and have it all done automatically for them in an automated process right within their applicant tracking system, within their current workflow. It's actually been kind of interesting for us, because what we've actually been doing as well is there's a secondary service that ties into this that is Karen's chatbot. And so that goes out and actually communicates with all of the candidates. Saving the recruiters obviously a ton of time by not having to, they don't have to ask all of the repetitive questions anymore about, whether someone has a job and why they're moving from a job, but also Karen's chatbot is able to actually provide the candidate with information about the company or the job requisition that they're providing. And we do a sentiment analysis on that as well, and we pull out concepts from the responses from the candidates. We feed all of that back into our shortlisting, so the recruiters can basically go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and have a shortlisted set of candidates that they can really focus their time and dig into and have conversations with all of them in a more meaningful and deeper way than what they would normally have the chance to, given that, time to fill for a recruiter. So time from the point that the job is actually posted to filling that position. That's a very important metric in HR and in recruiting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get away from that wonderful plug for Karen.
You got it. Yeah. Not a problem.
And instead, let's look at you and your role. What does an average working week look like for Noel
good
Webb?
Lord. Like within any startup, I wear many hats. So everything from developing pitch decks for VCs to product ideation, to road mapping, to looking after our budgets and our funding, and looking at particular scope and costing models and stress testing all of those as well. So it's quite a varied week, doing things like interviews with you. And that's a part of my week as well. Preparing press releases. You pretty much name it on the 10,000 foot level, and I've got my fingers in it all.
Okay, awesome. Now let's focus on the other reason why we're chatting today, and that is DisruptHR Toronto. You're going to be one of the 12 or 13 speakers, I think, that are going to be there that day.
Yeah.
And you are talking about something that I'm fascinated about. I don't know much about it, but I'm fascinated about it. and that's the idea is true AI possible? So before we talk about the topic, tell me, if you don't mind, what made you decide to be a speaker at DisruptHR Toronto?
Well, luckily enough, as I was developing the last product with Innosphere Team HQ, I had the chance to run into and meet Jeff Waldman, who is a part of DisruptHR in Canada. We had a lot to talk about, and he was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. And as we started talking about HR and particularly recruiting and the challenges there, and some of the things that we were talking about back and forth, it became very, 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 very evident that we had a confluence, and we had a very similar mindset that HR is completely ripe for disruption. There are many systems that are in place that are legacy systems that have been around for a very, very long time, and just that the general mindset in HR is ready for that shift. There are a lot of HR professionals out there that are ready to make changes. They feel as though that they're in a little bit in the dark technologically, and so that was why I decided to become a speaker for DisruptHR. Is Jeff recommended that I come in and talk, and that was it. That was the decision.
Thank you very much. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, you're going to be speaking about, is true AI possible? Tell me about the session, what it's going to involve, and are you going to have any slides with a picture of the Terminator on them?
I may have a couple of slides with a picture of the Terminator on them. A few of my colleagues and friends have pretty much said that I will be responsible for the Terminator's existence, which I don't think is true, but they have mentioned it a couple of times. Yeah, the talk itself particularly is going to be how we can disrupt the current HR systems with artificial intelligence, and more particularly, is true AI possible? And I'll be defining what I feel that true AI actually is in the discussion. But inherently, one of the things that we want to discuss is the difference between being able to apply a predictive model or a judgment model, and where AI is on that right now. Typically, computers have been able to, crunch a lot of algorithms and come up with some semblance of a level of prediction. But can they actually impart humanistic judgment on a particular set of copy or on a particular interaction, whether it be verbal and voice recognition and the sentiment analysis on that, or visual recognition, and how that actually directly affects the HR space.
So you get 5 minutes. I don't know if anybody's told you this. Yeah,
you
get five
minutes. Yeah, they have.
Doesn't seem like a heck of a lot of time to cover this topic. So tell me what unique challenges and opportunities a 5-minute session presents, but also as part of that, given that this is such a complex topic, what are the key learnings that you hope people can take away from your session?
Well, I think what I will end up doing, because there is a bit of a challenge in the 5-minute presentation, slide by slide, automatically forwarded format, that I'm going to keep it relatively high level, and the intent of it actually to get people to think about all of the different ways that they could possibly use AI and what its current state in the industry is right now. There's been a lot of misconception about what AI is and what AI can do within the media, particularly around the use of the term automation versus artificial intelligence and what that implies. So I think I'm going to keep it relatively high ground, see if I can get people to consider all of the different things that can happen, and then try and open up a little bit of discourse around whether true AI is possible after the actual presentation itself. Getting it within 5 minutes is going to be very, very difficult to get into all of the nooks and crannies and all of the potential challenges and issues that the inference of AI and HR possibly has.
Why do you think Toronto needs an event like DisruptHR?
I personally think I've lived in Toronto for the past 11 years, and I've toured this great country many times with a band that I play with as well. And honestly, I think it's one of the major cities in the country, and for Toronto to be at the forefront and in a bit of a leadership role within technology and HR, that voice needs to be heard, and there's no better place than a city like Toronto that's inclusive of people and very, very many different mindsets and approaches to HR, as well as all of the disruption and learning that's going on there. I think it's incredibly important that Toronto hosts this, as well as cities like Vancouver, Montreal. I'm not even sure if Calgary's on the map, but Calgary might be an interesting one down the road.
It certainly is. Yeah, they've had a couple now.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yes. Okay.
They're all over it.
Oh, perfect.
Would you say that Toronto is one of the major tech hubs for HR software in North America? Obviously, you've got Silicon Valley and various places in California, and Vancouver seems to be doing an amazing job, and there are some places out east on the east coast there in the US. Would you say Toronto ranks highly in terms of places for innovation in the space?
Absolutely. Toronto, and even if you'd like to extend that out all the way out to Kitchener-Waterloo as well, it's an incredible hub for disruption, new ideas in the technological space. There's a ton of HR software that's coming out of this area, and a lot of great innovation that's coming out of Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo.
Perfect, thank you. Any favourites? I'm just going to put you on the spot there. In the Greater Toronto area or Southern Ontario, yeah, and 2 or 3 favourite technologies that you've seen come out in the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about the one that I'm really excited about right now. Unfortunately, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what would be some of the favorites that have come out. None are coming completely to top of mind. A colleague of mine has a great company called Silk, and they're a financial analysis tool, and that's a pretty incredible tool that they've developed over the past couple of years, but that has nothing to do with HR.
Okay, thank you. We're coming towards the end of this particular episode. I'm very much looking forward to getting the opportunity to meet you in person at DisruptHR Toronto. But before we wrap up for today, a couple of last questions for you. Firstly, are you attending or speaking at any other HR-related events in the next 6 to 12 months? And if so, which ones and why?
Next year, there is going to be the IBM HR Summit in Toronto. I'll definitely be attending that one. The reason that I'm going to that one is the fact that not only are we partnered with IBM and using Watson and training Watson models for HR specifically to be able to release as APIs for the general consumption by the enterprise, but we find that their events are incredibly well organized. The speakers are really dynamic. They have a lot of great things to say and a lot of insight into the space in a way that I think many HR professionals might not be used to hearing. I might not be used to thinking in particular ways as well. So they're really, really what's the word that I would use? They really do get you to think, and they do get you to walk away and see all of the different ways that you could possibly alter your workflow or alter your job, or different software that you could start to impart within your job to make it a lot easier for you and for your team and for their broader corporation.
Spoken like a true believer in AI. The software is coming. It's replacing us all. Right? We could have taken this conversation down a whole different route and talking about transhumanism. Maybe next time. Perhaps we have a special HR edition focused on transhumanism and the coming apocalypse. I don't know. Does that sound cynical?
Yeah.
Okay. Just finally, how can our listeners learn more about you?
If you go to Karen.ai, you can learn more about our product, Karen. Also, if you like, you can get a hold of me at Noel@Karen.ai if you have any questions. And we are actually in the process of onboarding pilot partners. So if there's anybody out there that is of the enterprise size or a larger recruitment company that's interested in piloting Karen with your firm, feel free to get a hold of us as well. Or if you're just intrigued and want to discuss a little bit more on how AI can change the sector.
Noel Webb, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Listeners, I've been your host, Bill Banham. This has been the HRchat podcast brought to you by the HR Gazette. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the HRchat podcast, brought to you by the HR Gazette.